Hello, and welcome to Brian Jack's Rackety Tam, Chapter 4. Move over, monkey butt. It's been a while. I don't feel very good, but you know what? You gotta keep living life. So that's Chet, me, Bugs Bunny, Isaiah, Mariah, Jacob, Amanda, Isaac, and Crystal, their mother. And then yada yada yada. Oh, and Bob and Pat. This chapter is going to be really cool. I love tree houses, and there's some kind of treehouse Ewok thing. Let's find out why. The territory of Squirrel King Alitum and Igda Dray Queen consisted of a sizable grove of the beech, hazelnut, and various conifers that grew near the cliff tops and the shoreline, some 2 leagues south of Samasterdon. Salamandastron. That's a weird word. It's like a castle a badger and hares live in. It was not far from where Walt and Jim had found Asgar's wrecked boat. Aratim was a fat, pompous, and vain creature whose little king was one of his own making. He had also conferred the name Drake Queen on his haughty, ill-mannered wife, Igna. They were indeed a well-matched pair. It was with authority over the. It was some 12 seasons since they have arrived and enforced their authority over the tree groves. Aratum did this by hiring mercenary squirrel warriors, traveling Palu's fighters, who pledged their swords in exchange for position and the benefits of life amid the fertile groves of fruit and nut trees, which abounded in the Squirrel King's domain. It was no mean achieved for the royal couple to have established their rule. Their home and court was in a terraces at the center of the groves. Aratum and Igna reveled in the settling of petty ceremonies, laws, acts, and penalties which were rigidly enforced by their officers. One morning, Igna Dray Queen awoke to witness the arrival of spring, a welcome event for the harsh, dark days of winter. The last snows melted and slid from the bend beyond. Under the warm, beaming sun, birdsong echoed through the trees, backed by the rippling music of streams freed from their icy covers. The earth was renewing itself once more. With the new season came the intention of the new ceremony, the marking of the marches. This was something which Aratum and Igna had planned throughout the tedious days and evenings of wintertide. It was to be a grand parade of royal couples' boundaries, starting at the court, then spreading forth to circle the groves which marked their lands, accumulating back at the court with a grand feast. The entire affair would be punctuated with music, song, and many high-flown speeches which Squirrel King and his Dray Queen had written for themselves. This was designed to impress upon their subjects the power and magnificence of the royal pair. Igna and her servants had spent long winter nights making a banner, a large florid thing, truly a triumphal set piece. It was yellow, florid thing, truly a triumphal set piece. It was yellow with blue chevrons on one side to denote the sea, 6 green trees representing the land at the other side. At its center was dominated by 2 huge bushy tails, the symbols of the king and the queen squirrel. At the opening of the new ceremony, the royal banner, which was now fixed to a long flagstaff made from yew wood, was presented to Aratum by Igna. Amid cheers of jubilant chants from rank and file squirrels, Igna performed none of their actual, friends. Igna performed an elaborate curtsy and fell flat on her considerable rear end. A playful gust of wind caught the banner, causing Eratum to stagger about and nearly to be swept off his paws. Drittig and Changmog, the two captains, saved the king from injury by taking charge of the billowing flag. As Igna had helped to her by her servants, Eratum launched squeakily into his speech.
Ahem! Ere let us all who see this our royal standard, how the hedge and how the tells is respect. Yes, wherever our banner flies, it will inspire joy in the hearts of all.
Dutiful cheers, yea, forth the onlookers as the king continued,
and strike terror into the hearts of foes who are rash enough to trespass upon these my territories.
More orchestrated calls of approval rang out among the crowd before Eratum concluded his speech.
This flag shall be my power, lest all beasts, known of the beauty and wisdom of Igna Dayqueen and her king, the fearless and mighty magnificent.
Here he raised his paws as his subjects shouted in mass, Long live Ida Dayqueen and Squirrel King Artyom! The process wound off through the trees, Eratum swaggering in the lead, Chemong and Drillage slightly behind bearing the new royal standard, and six their various captains and official following. In their wake marched a score of singers and musicians, trilling the praises of their rulers in a song jointly composed by the royal couple. O mighty and magnificent, upholders of our laws, the loyal subjects call to thee, protect us with thy paws. O Eratum and thy dry queen, so fair of foreign tale, we bow to thee in honor, and joyfully cry hail. A huge ancient chestnut tree, which held the court within its spreading limbs, had a small barred door set at the base of its trunk. This was the cell which held descendants and malefactors. Looks like that. Doogie Plum peered through the tiny barred aperture and laughed. Then, in his strong northern Highland accent, he shouted out, Ho, ho, ho! Will you listen to that doggerheads a-chanting and a-singing ta weir Lard Barrel? Doogie, a short, thick-bodied squirrel, was no lightweight himself. He turned to his fellow prisoner, a tall, powerful, sinewy big bones. Odds Tam, my beauty, don't you wish we were out there having such a brown time, counterwilling with all Egypt's praises? Would ye do be grieving to miss the brown feast to your majesty's? Raggedy Tam McBur unfurled himself from a small book and stretched lazily. Nah, Doogie, I soon miss dozen feast that have to bow and scrape around that little toad singing foolish ditties that him and Adiga pinned up themselves between them. Tam's accent was as broad as Doogie's. He was broader and not from the Highlands. Doogie scrambled down from the stool that he had perched on and threw himself on the bunk. Ah, Tam, we did every room south of the pledge of our blades to sich a pair of fools. Tam laughed readily. Because it seemed a good idea at the time, we Doogie Plum. We have to take the bad with the good. Doogie scratched his tail. Aye, and then Hussein been much a good lately. Tam rattled the cell door to attract the attention of the guard who was posted outside. Hey, Hindu, when are they going to let us out of here? We're famished for the want of food. Hinjo served with both Tam and Doogie and was friendly towards him. He shrugged apologetically. Sorry, Tam, I've got my orders. Both you have to stay there until the ceremony and feast are finished. Then I'll go to march you up to the court, where the royal pair will decide what the punishment fits your crime, mate. Rackety Tam, who looks like this guy holding the sword, Rackety Tam's face was a picture of roguish innocence. "Oh, me! What crime am I supposed to have committed?" The guard shook his head, chuckling. "Oh, you mournfulness rascal, Captain MacWhirl. What you did to Elton was going to do after you called him a waddling old windbag and refused to carry the royal flag in his new ceremony. Tam, you're the best warrior the king's ever had, but you can't insult him like that and get off free now, can you?" Doogie scrambled back onto the stool next to Tam. I never thought I'd aboot the blithering oaf." Hinju golfed loudly. "Oh, of course you didn't, Doogie. But you did call Igna Draqueen a fussy-bustled old branch buster. I think you might have had something to do with you being here, huh?" Doogie Plum wiggled his nose. "Och, that was only saying what every beast was thinking." Hinjo leaned on his spear and explained to Doogie. "Aye, but no matter whatever beast is thinking, they keep it to themselves. You two are the first to say it out loud. Why don't you go and take another nap? When all the celebrations are done, you'll be sent for. Take my word for it, mates. I got my orders." Further argument was useless. Tam and Doogie lay heads to paws on the little bunk and tried to slumber, each with his own thoughts. Both beasts had left the Northlands to come south for the winter of the famine, the starvation, or the death by bands of Pridavoce vermin killed off many squirrels that winter. Neither Tam nor Doogie had any close family, but both were young warriors with a sense of adventure. They met up on the road worth trekking south for the warmer climes. Straightway they were taken to each other and had become the closest of comrades. Together the two squirrels had lived through a series of perils and scrapes, but had come through it all, still side by side. Tam and Doogie had been spotted by Airtrium scouts as soon as they had walked into his territory. The Squirrel King immediately knew that these two young warriors were the best he had ever seen. Initially, Tam and Doogie had been flattered by the cordial welcome and the attention lavished upon them by the royal couple. In Atrium's kingdom were rich and fertile copses and glades, food grown in abundance everywhere, and balmy coastline climate most seasons. A whole different world compared to the hard life of the Northlands from whence Tam and Doogie had come. Soon the two companions had pledged their word and swore to the king's service, but both had risen swiftly in the ranks, Tam being made royal champion, and the faithful Doogie always at his friend's side, having fiercely repulsed any foe beast who attacked. Soon there were few large vermin raids of any kind. After a plume had become bywords, after a while the names Rackety Toon MacWhirl and Wild Doogie Plume had become bywords for courage and fearlessness. With the passing of seasons, Ariatum's land becomes safe and secure, no longer a satisfying place for active warriors. Tam and Doogie, still young and wild, became disenchanted with having to enforce the trivial and oftentimes piffling petty regulations made by Ariatum and Igna. The day before the new ceremony brought things to a head. Now they were imprisoned by the same laws that they had upheld. Things would never again be the same between Tam, Doogie, and the royal squirrel rulers. Tam and Doogie withheld away the hours, dozing fitfully. At mid-noon, Hinju tapped on the door. Tap, tap, tap. Doogie sat up, rubbing both eyes with his tail brush. "What's going on out there? Can't you not let a body take a wee rest? Away with you!" The time was spear butt rapped on the door sharply. "Tam," your voice was loud and urgent. "Come quick, Igna Drakery wants to see you both. Something's gone badly wrong, I don't know what 'tis, but you're both to follow me at the double." Rising unhurriedly, Tam began rapping on his woven heather tartan of brown, green, and dusty lilac, first around his waist in a kilt, and then across his chest and over the shoulder, so that it draped down cloak-like upon his back. He winked roguishly at Doogie, who was also dressing. Igna wants us to see us. That's nice. I wonder if she saved some cake and wine. Dearie me, we can't dash up there looking like a pair of ragamuffins, Doogie. Ejo bolted the door and opened it hastily. Will you two put a move on? You'll need it urgent now. Doogie Plum settled in a small eagle feather in his cap. He spat on one pan and peered it through his tail slowly. Ouch, the poor wee queenie. Tell her we'll come drop a tea chat with her soon as we're looking brawn and saucy. Ejo pleaded, come on, mates, please, or she'll have my hide, Tam. Will you move yourself? Tam clenched his broad belt tight with the set of his cap at an angle. So then, Doogie, my friend, do you think we're fit enough to be presented to Her Majesty? His companion threw up a smart tail salute. Oi, like a pair of lasses ready to dance. A real sir. Rackety Tam bowed gallantly to Doogie. After you, sir. Quick march. Left, right, tails up, shoulders back, eyes in front. They marched out in perfect step, leaping together up into the big old chestnut truck. A white platform of limbs and boughs connected the chestnut with several large trees. This formed the royal court, which at that moment was in a state of chaos. King Atrum was wrapped in a blanket, disheveled and shivering and wailing. Igna Drake Queen had gone into a swoon, lying flat on her back, gasping for breath. Several of her servants were fanning her with ferns and dabbing her paws with rosewater. Squirrels were running hither and thither, some hiding, others gathering up their belongings. Tam marched straight up to Eratum, questioned him sharply. What in the name of seasons has been going on here? Regardless of not being addressed by his titular, the king sobbed, this was attacked. I invaded. Assaulted barbarians, hooligans, monsters. They stolen our royal banner. The courtiers and servants set up a converted moan, and roared at them. Will y'all shut that villainy up? Igna Drake Queen raised a tear-stained face, blubbering. Oh, me poor love, what was those murderers done to you? You all be slain in our beds. Oh. Tam turned to her contemptuously. Silence, Mom, and try to behave like a queen. Your husband's alive and well. Where did all this happen, Drillage? Nursing a bruised paw, Captain Drillage muttered brokenly. Down at the west fringe, near the cliff tops. Tam nodded to Doogie. Get down that fast, mate. See what's going on, then report back to me. Doogie took off like an arrow, zinging through the foliage, turning his attention to the trembling king. Tam tried to make sense of all that was going on. Tell me what you can. What did you see? Altram blurted out squeakily. There's 100 of them. White vermin, they were surrounded us. And then the thing that Gullo attacked without warning. It was almost killed. Did you hear me? Almost killed. Atram collapsed, weeping hysterically. Tam gave an irritating snort. Grabbing hold of Drillage, he hauled himself upright. Make your report, Captain. Come on. Smarten up. Drillage could not meet his interrogator's eyes. He rubbed a bruised paw, blabbering like a beast in a trance. It was a nightmare. One moment we were marching out to the trees and onto the western fringe. Me and Chamong were carrying the flag. The others were singing and playing flutes. Suddenly, they ambushed us out of nowhere, a great mob of wild vermin, white foxes and ermine stoats. The leader was called Gullo. They were yelling his name, Gullo, Gullo. They hit us like lightning, ripping, slaying, and slashing. We never stood a chance. I dropped the flag, then me and Peentooth over there. He seized the king and rushed him up onto the trees. And then when I hurt my paw, we went like the wind. Our creatures screaming and dying back there. We could hear those vermin roaring and laughing like mad beasts. I never forget it as long as I live, never. Drintledge slumped down weeping. The older squirrel, Pine Tooth, was an experienced campaigner. He sat silent, ignoring a bleeding wound on his shoulder. Tam looked at him. Pine Tooth shook his head. I can tell you no more'n he did, Tam. It all happened too fast. Tam nodded. You'd best get that wound seen to, mate. Pine Tooth glanced at his injury as if just noticing it. One of the vermin slashed at me with a blade shaped like a sickle. I was lucky, though. I escaped. That Guno beast caught the captain. Shamong first. Poor beast, he screamed like a babe. Igna Draqueen had sufficiently recovered to complain that Tam, my poor Atrium almost killed. And where were you while all this murder was taking place, eh? Rackety Tam lost his temper and bellowed at her. Locked in the guardhouse because I wouldn't play your stupid little games, Mom. Don't you remember? When me and Doogie's weapons of war, you had 'em confiscated. Pine Tooth went to a concealed place among the branches. He dragged forth a big sack with its neck tied shut. Tearing it open with his teeth, he upended it. Tam grabbed the unbelongings and had been taken from him his trusty weapon, a claymore, which is a large two-handed sword. My favorite. With a hefty double-edged blade and a basket kilt, his dirk, which is a long dagger used by northerners for close fighting, and his Singandu, spelled Sgiandhu, a small, keen, skinning knife with a black handle and an amber carosone set on the top. Tam thrust the claymore into the side of his belt, the dirk the back, and beneath his cloak, the Shingamdoon behind the hackle of feathers set up to his cap. Lest he picked up his buckler, a small round fighting shield, slinging it behind his left shoulder. Only a couple more paragraphs to go, guys. Now I feel properly dressed. I'll hold Doogie's gear here until he gets back. And it was some time before Tam's partner returned. Buckling on his 3 blades and picking up his shield, Doogie spoke quietly to Tam. I tell you, mate, it was a massacre. Tam showed no emotion. Were there no wounded on either side? Did you not catch sight of the vermin? Doogie shook his head. Nary a sign of them. But they left tracks aplenty. There was no one of our fighters alive. Tam pointed to Igna and Atrium. Doogie, you and the rest bring these 2 along. 'Twill do them good to see the results of their play acting. 'Tis safe enough to return there now. I'll go ahead and look at the vermin tracks where they're still fresh. As Tam swung off from the trees, Atrium protested. He can't talk to me like that. I'm a king. Doogie dragged Atrium up, whipping the blanket off of him. You're not but a blithering old blotter. Get a moving. Igna Draqueen called out indignantly. You common little beast! I'll have you thrown back into the guardhouse for your impotent cords. Seize him! As no beast moved to hither him, Doogie scowled fiercely. Igna, and don't want to hear you anything word out of ye. Now move your fat little tail, you wee beady, or I'll move it for you. Tune in next time for Chapter 5. Have a good life.